So now it is with great pleasure and pride and respect that I introduce Reverend Patrick Pollard, our spiritual leader and mentor, for this week's wonderful message.
So I want to welcome everyone, and I want to thank you, Mary Jo, and thank you everyone who've taken part in setting up this moment, this actual moment. So welcome to this time and welcome to this space. The science of mind is the study of life and the nature of the laws of thought, the conception that we live in a spiritual universe, that God is in us, around us, and for us. And of course, there's nothing against us. You heard that from Mary Jo. I always repeat that because the word science of mind could have a different connotation if you had to think about it on your own. So today we are going to talk about onward and upward. Mary Jo read something from the Science of Mind on page 31. She said, no man had ever plumbed the depths of either the conscious or the subjective life. In both directions, we reach out to infinity, and since we cannot encompass infinity, we shall always be expanding and always enlarging our capacity to know and to experience. Isn't that wonderful? End of quote. That's a wonderful, wonderful statement, which is so much truth in it. So what does this really mean? Experience of God. How do we experience God? Everyone in their own unique way does. Some metaphysical junkies might say it's simply knowing oneself, experiencing oneself. Well, that's partly true, and it doesn't really come far enough. I believe that the most meaningful and most important aspect of religious or spiritual involvement is for one to experience the sublime, the mystical, a union transcendent of the physical or of time and space. That, to me, really speaks about experience, the allness of God. Something they have been a deep thought inside of them, a desire, a dream, a vision. You know, it's Mahatma Gandhi says, champions are made from something deep inside of them, a desire, a dream, a vision. That's Mahatma Gandhi. The nameless, when time stops and everything stands still, that's an experience of God. I'm sure all of us have had that. That seeming space where nothing exists but a sense of the divine. Carl Jung said this. He says, religion is a defense against a religious or spiritual experience. Religion is a defense against an experience of the sacred. Carl Jung. So it just tells you that there is more to knowing the divine and experiencing God than belonging to a religion, than trying to be religious. Religion is a defense against the experience of the sacred. Why? Because we get trapped in our own concepts and ideas and lose our freedom to have an experience of the transcendent and the mystical. I stopped because I wanted you to think about your own thoughts, how you have trapped yourself in a web where you can't understand what it means to have a transcendent experience of God. Why? Because we get trapped in our concepts, in our ideas, and lose our sense of freedom to have an experience of the mystical. To experience God, we must go beyond, past the image of God which is in the final obstruction, the ultimate barrier. I'll say that again. To experience God, we must go beyond, we must pass the image of God, which is the final obstruction, the ultimate barrier. So I am saying, if you have an image of God, you have blocked yourself from experiencing the sublime. You have blocked yourself from experiencing the real essence of nothingness, where the presence of God is. God is not attached to anything. You think you could live that way? Without any attachment whatsoever, without any caring about what is present in the moment? All the things we gather and put aside and call them precious, hang on the walls, decorate them, put them in safe, in locked, where there is a kind of code in order to get in. Only you know that code. God's not in there. God's not anywhere. God is everywhere. Dr. Holmes.
Patrick, you have to unmute yourself. It got muted.
I don't know how that happened. Somebody must have muted me. It so happened that I didn't even touch the buttons, but that's the way it worked. So Dr. Holmes used the term, the thing itself. Did you hear that? The thing itself, because he could not put into words what that experience of the presence of God is. God is the ultimate elementary idea of man. To experience God with form in heaven, on earth, right here, right now. How do we experience God? We have to step beyond what we think we know. We have to step beyond our pre-ideas, our concepts. And you know, all of us have a slightly different take. And if we put all of that together, that's still not enough to experience God. You can only experience God in total silence, not just in total silence of sound, but total silence of your own mind. Do you think you could do that? Can you silence your mind for 1 minute, 1 second? One can only know God through contemplation, because it's almost impossible to silence your mind. So you have to contemplate what the presence and essence of God really is. Here's something from the Navajo tradition. They say, we are on the pollen path, the circle of life. Oh, beauty before me, beauty behind me, beauty to the right, beauty to the left of me, beauty above me, beauty below me. I am on the pollen path. End of quote. That's from the Navajo tradition. Does that sound closer to what you've been thinking about when in terms of experiencing the presence? This is the trick. We've trapped ourselves in our ideas of what God is, of what the presence of God really is. The passage of time is the experience of God. The passage of time. The sun comes up, and the sun comes up and goes down again and again. It is the same movement within the whole, one wholeness, within the circle, a realization of being at the center. Here's something from mythology. When the angel of death comes, he is terrible. When he reaches you, it is bliss. You see, those thoughts really expand out. It opens up something new in us, a new channel. So I'm going to read this on everybody. I'm sure everybody listening today has heard this. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in every one of us. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Think about that. Marianne Williamson wrote that. It's a very famous old time something that you could hang on your wall. It's fantastic. She said, we are born to make manifest the glory of God, which is within. You think about that. Have you been looking elsewhere for the glory of God? Have you been looking at the stars, looking out at night, looking at lights, looking at stuff outside of yourself, thinking that you could discover what God is, where God is? This is our next step. The next step we have to take. And if you haven't taken it yet, take it. Because the next step is to surrender and find the God that already is in you. Compassion is one of the most powerful ways to experience God. The open heart, the sense of union that goes beyond the surface contact. You get attached to a surface contact, you're still too far away from the inner truth. When you take a deep breath and you say, ah, and it stops there, something is the most real you will ever experience. And that is the least that you give attention to. An enlightened, an elongated out breath on the release. On the release of the out breath, you can sense the mystery of union. Without release, there can be no union. Think about that. Without release, there can be no union. It seems that when people are in the flow with attention, the experience of God occurs. The experience of bliss occurs. In the science of mind, there is nothing supernatural anywhere, and you heard this just now. Nothing supernatural anywhere on any plane. That which today seems supernatural, when it is fully understood, becomes spontaneously natural. Think about that. A coincidence. You know what a coincidence is? It's a small miracle where God prefers to remain anonymous. Carl Jung said, religion is a defense against an experience of the sacred. So you know all of that, and yet we have the problem. Let me read to you what Ernest Holmes says, another statement he reads about the science of mind, and then I will close. He says, the science of mind is based entirely upon the supposition that we are surrounded by a universal mind into which we think This mind, in its original state, fills all space. It fills the space that we use in the universe. It is in us as well as outside us. As we think into this universal mind, we set a law in motion, which is creative and which contains within itself a limitless possibility, known as homes. End of quote. We live in a field of possibility. You know who said that? A famous doctor. Every one of us here knows, Deepak Chopra. We live in a field of possibility. You'll find that in his book, Ageless Body, Timeless Mind. And the other book is on quantum physics.